C21 Turner Brokers.
And I'm Judy Welacher with C21 Turner Brokers. This is our home inspection segment geared for our first-time home buyers.
And we're here with Kevin Melquist of Cobblestone Inspections. Kevin, why don't you tell us something a little bit about yourself?
So Kevin Melquist, I run Cobblestone Inspections. We are a multi-inspector firm. And what we do is we are asked by buyers and sellers to go in and inspect every aspect of the home, whether it's pre-purchase or it's pre-offer or it's after the offer has been made. We go in and we make a compiled list of things that are in the house, different maintenance. We give you different maintenance tips. We also give you different ideas. We look for defects or things that, you know, maybe the homeowner has lived there for 30 years, just always passed by and never paid attention to. But moving forward is something that would be things that you would want to fix or repair, and just generally give you basically a sound peace of mind for the purchase that you're buying.
What are some of the things that a buyer could expect to have inspected by you? What is your scope?
When we start, our scope of inspection, it basically starts outside, and we usually start in the roof. If it's a walkable roof, we do get up on the roof. If we can get it, we can make access. It all depends on heights and everything. If we cannot make it on the roof, we have a drone that we will fly, and we are able to get really close. And with the high definition, it's amazing, the cameras on the drones. So we'll be able to see what's going on with the roof and make detailed documentation with that. And then usually we work at the buildings and grounds, and we go inside and we go room to room, checking outlets, windows, looking for any kind of thing that's out of place or not ordinary with the house. It's not a destructive inspection, it's a non-obtrusive. So we don't open sealed access panels, we don't dig into anything with the exception of the furnace in the electrical panel. We will take the cover off the electrical panel and we inspect inside the electrical panel, and we look for any possible burning or scoring of electric lines, or we are also checking for different wire sizes and making sure everything is proper in there. And then pulling off the covers of the furnace, it lets us look inside and see if there's any adverse conditions going on inside of the actual furnace itself.
Do you recommend that a buyer get a radon gas test? Being a first-time home buyer, they're probably not even familiar with what's radon gas.
So if the EPA had it, the EPA would recommend that every single sale that went through had a radon test, and that every house in the United States would every 2 years get a radon test. And where we happen to live in our area, we are in a high radon area. But radon is very strange in the fact that it's in pockets. So I do know our local market here, and I can say you might want to get a radon test here, and you might not get you might not need one here, just because of the nature of our market. But we don't know the levels without testing. So one house could have a lot of it, and another house could have absolutely nothing. And it is a good idea. It's very inexpensive test that can cover you for a couple of years, or it actually gives you that again, moving forward, it can give you a peace of mind in living in your house.
What kind of involvement can a buyer have in the home inspection process?
The buyer can have 100% involvement. What we ask is we kind of started this process during COVID to keep the 6 feet of separation, and it has actually worked because we're able to perform better inspections, because we're asking our buyers to come about an hour into the inspection. The process of an inspection takes approximately about 2 hours to do, and if the inspector is unencumbered with questions, he can focus exactly on the process and everything, and getting the inspection process and finding the items. And it's kind of the more questions that are asked, sometimes the more it might throw the inspector off of what he is or she is doing in the inspections. the involvement can be, you're able to be over the shoulder. An inspector will say, hey, let me get to that next section, and let me, different things. But it's usually better if the inspector is able to do everything and then do a walk around with you at the end of the process, because then you have everything as a whole and you can digest everything as a whole. So rather than, as soon as we get started, we find out on the outside there's this, and then I tell you about it, and then we go inside and we might find a couple other issues or areas of attention that we that may want to be addressed, and then we forget all about the outside that we had discussed before, and so it's not fresh on your mind when you're discussing it. However, the report in there does summarize and put everything right in pretty much exactly what we had spoke about during the inspection.
Speaking on outside, what items are not covered standard in the home inspection process?
Outside?
Or inside, I mean, are there certain things, the first-time home buyers need to know?
Yes, so typically some inspectors, it differs per inspection company. And some inspectors won't do appliances, some will. And that's we inspect all the appliances that are permanently installed. So if you have a built-in microwave, we will inspect that, although we don't do x-ray checks on it or to see if it's spewing out any x-rays. We just make sure that it turns on and it runs, and that the fans work and the lights work and the doors open and close and the turntable spins. Same thing with the stove, is we will fire up a stove and we'll run it and usually get it up at temperature. Dishwashers. The only thing that we really don't inspect is washers and dryers. And the reason being is I've just personally found that they're kind of a fickle thing, and we can get there, and a lot of times people live in the house, so they already have clothes in the washer, so you don't want to start another cycle with people's clothes in the washer. Same thing with the dryer. But the other thing is, on top of that, is typically a washer and dryer, a set, depending on the model you get, can be replaced for around $500 to $600. So it's not that it's not a big thing, and especially for a first-time home buyer moving into a house, $500, $600 is a big chunk, and we completely understand that, with washers and dryers. But to inspect them, we can't get an accurate, okay, this is going to last, or this is working correctly, or what have you, just because of the different intricate and moving parts in a washing machine.
What about on the outside? I mean, do you check retaining walls, sheds, fences?
So fences, we do walk along the fence line, and we do look and see if the fence is leaning, or if there's any thing that they might want to pay attention to. It's not involved. Sheds. A shed is basically just a quick visual inspection around it. A shed is a shed. A shed can be moved, it can be taken down, and it can be rebuilt, or what have you. But if the shed has a bad roof on it and we notice that, we'll pay attention. Typically, a lot of times homeowners lock their sheds and then they don't leave us the key. So we run in where we don't have access to it. If we do, myself or my inspectors will open up the door and just kind of peer in and look, and we see if we see any leaking or anything like that, or and just make a quick mention to them to let them move through sheds. But they are not actually an inspection item on our inspection forms that we do. Detached garages, pole barns, they all are. Septic systems, we will inspect the area of the septic system, but here in our county comes out and does a full septic test and inspection at no cost to the new home buyer that's coming in. But again, we look at it. We also look at the well and the well casing, if the house has one, because we make sure that the well casing, in New York State, you're required to have what's called a sanitary well cap. And that is also the seller's responsibility to put on. So if myself or my inspectors notice that it's not a sanitary well cap, we will make that known so that the buyer's agent can notify the listing agent that hey, when the county comes, this is going to be one of the things that they're going to make you change. So you might want to get on that now, and and stuff like that. So we're just trying with that, but unless we do a well flow test, we really don't do too much inspecting of the well. We just make sure that it meets proper standards according to New York State's recorded laws.
buyers that will question whether or not the home inspection will pass or fail. So what is your take on that terminology, pass or fail, or what is a passing, what is a failing home inspection in your opinion?
I get that question every inspection. Did it pass? Did it pass? So the answer is every house passes. I've only been in a few houses where I've been paid to inspect them that I have just said this house just needs to be torn down. But again, that was the nature of the house, and I was paid to make that determination. But most houses I go into are freestanding and they're fine. They might have a lot of deferred maintenance. So on a house, to answer that question correctly, there is no pass or fail. It is what it is. And our inspection process, when we go over it, we are looking for things that can be brought back up to today's standards. We are not a code enforcement officer. A code enforcement officer passes something or fails something. We just are finding the data and reporting on it and saying, hey, this area right here should be addressed because this can happen if it is not repaired. So
Kevin, how long does it take you to get the buyer an actual written report?
typically the same day. We have the report the same day or that evening. A lot of times, depending on how many people we have at the inspection and how many questions we deal with, we can usually have the report almost right when we walk out the door, completely completed, and emailed to you guys.
Kevin, is there anything else that you feel that a buyer should know of the importance of a home inspection?
Yes. So a couple of different things. Around where we live in our area, we are a very old town. So one of the things that is kind of running across the country now, and in different municipalities, it's a requirement that when you sell a house, you get a sewer camera inspection. I highly recommend in some areas of the house, and I could be able to help you with it, or my office staff can be able to help you and identify the areas that would need it and would not need it, because certainly we do want you to pay for something that you wouldn't need. And but that's, but I would highly recommend getting a sewer lateral inspection, and that's where we have a camera and we go right down the sewer line and we look for any possible breaks, root growth, buildup, anything that might cause you a lot of money down, in the future. So typically replacing a sewer line to the road runs around $7,000 just in our little locale, and that was last year's prices, and now that with inflation, it could be up even higher. So I always recommend that. I always recommend a home inspection regardless of the age of the house, because even a brand new built house can have issues that the builder the builder did, because you got to remember that the builder, usually when they build a house, and especially a spec house, that they have the lowest bidders putting the drywall, the paint, the appliances in, and everything like that in order to complete the house as a whole, so they can get it out and put it on market and sell it. So even having a home inspection in those, we will discount for new construction inspections, because it is a little bit less of an inspection where we don't run into as many defects as we would in say a house that's 30 to 50 years old. But so always consider a home inspection. Just always consider it, and not saying it if you never use my company, that's completely okay, but always use a home inspection. We have a lot of good home inspectors around in this area, so always you always want to get a home inspection.
Great. Judy, any other questions?
I think we've covered all the questions I can think of.
So again, this is Kevin Melquist with Cobblestone Inspections. We appreciate your time, Kevin, and we appreciate you joining us today to learn a little bit about home inspections and the buying process of a home. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.